Good morning, y'all. Good morning. We saw some interesting things happen yesterday in Wisconsin. So, Wisconsin and Florida had very special elections that had our attention nationwide. And they're going to have ramifications going forward. Let's get into this. First of all, want to ask for your forgiveness if I have a more disheveled appearance. I just got back from the gym and I am so pumped just with adrenaline and everything like that. I really pushed it hard. I didn't want to jump in the shower, put the shirt and tie in. My shirt and tie is sitting right over there. I have a shower in a bathroom here in my office studio. And I said, no. I want the BCP family to see me raw as if we were all camping together. And I just woke up and said, hey, let's talk about the news. I want to give you that vibe. So I appreciate you being here. Let's talk about what happened in Wisconsin relatively briefly, because what happened in Wisconsin may not happen again. And we also had, I don't know, some possible shenanigans that remind me of things that happened in Arizona in 2022 midterms and in 2020 and in 2024. Let's see if you guys can pick up on this pattern. Or maybe I'm just being overly sensitive because I like free and fair elections. And I don't like when I see things that make you go, And then we'll get into this Trump news. Happy Hump Day. Happy April 2nd day. Happy Liberation Day. Today is supposed to be Liberation Day. Okay. Susan Crawford is a projected winner of Wisconsin's Supreme Court election, which keeps the court's liberal majority. And that is why there's been so much money and so much focus on this. Democrat-aligned Dane County Circuit Judge Susan Crawford secured a victory in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election on Tuesday against Trump-backed County District Circuit Court Judge and former Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel. This is what the Associated Press called it and projected it last night. It was called at 10:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, an hour after the polls in the battleground state closed, with 70% of the votes being counted. I really wish they wouldn't call them until all the votes are counted, but I guess if they call them after everyone's voted, I guess that's fine. But it'd be nice if, I guess statistically they can call them, and they have accurately called them as far as we know, when they have enough data to do so. But here is here's the crazy thing that Crawford led Schimmel 55-9 to 44.1%. So let's call it 56 to 44%. So that is seemingly a very large margin by which the very leftist judge beat the would-be conservative challenger. Now, here is what's interesting. When I did my live stream last night, right before I did my live stream, I had open a live count of the Wisconsin Supreme Court election results. And what was weird was, in the beginning, it was like Crawford, Schimmel, Crawford. It was like actually bouncing back a couple times, and then it was really close, and then Crawford just took off. And I saw that they, like Green Bay and some of the bigger counties were had the results in first, and that's why we saw the lead, and it continued. Okay, now a lot of money was spent on this. This is the second most expensive state Supreme Court race. And of course, we know that it's supposed to be nonpartisan, right? These judges don't run as political parties, like let's vote for the Democrat, but who's left leaning and who's right leaning because of their actions they've taken in the past, their party affiliation, and their rulings in the past. And there was $100 million spent, between $90 and $100 million spent. I saw two different reports. One said it's $100 million. One said it was over $90 million. But let's just round it up and say it was $90 million. It's projected that that Elon Musk may have spent even $20 million on this. Now, why was this such a big deal and why did it get such national attention? Well, because this is the left running on Roe v. Wade, which has been turned back to the states. The left wants to make sure they can continue their bloodlust and their baby sacrifices and their convenient form of post-coital birth control. That is how the left positioned this, and that's why they got a lot of support. As a matter of fact, most of the money came from outside the state. Crawford was bankrolled by left-wing billionaires Georgie Porgy, Zorro, Reid Hoffman, and J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Individuals known for lavishly spending millions of dollars on radical causes like defunding police and the trans agenda. Overall, Crawford raised more than $26 million and Schimmel raised $14 million. That's how much they raised. So Crawford, not quite, because 14 times 2, that'd be 28, but 26 million, almost double Crawford raised over Schimmel. And once again, it's because the left wants to make sure that they can have leftist Supreme Courts. And this is the crazy thing. 77% of Crawford's donors came from outside Wisconsin. Only 15% of Schimmel's donors came from outside Wisconsin. So once again, Wisconsin was swayed by outside the state money. Now, here is what has me going, something here is very strange. Several counties in Wisconsin were running out of ballots. Now, this is a hotly contested Supreme Court race, and many counties, oh no, we know this is getting national attention. We know this is a big deal, but we're running out of ballots. And then the GOP and many of these red-leaning counties were tweeting out and telling people, stay in line, don't get out of line. They will be bringing ballots. Isn't that interesting? Initial reports seem to indicate that once again, red areas were running out of ballots in a hotly contested Supreme Court race. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Damn it, where is my tinfoil hat? I'm supposed to believe that everything is on the up and up. So let's back up here for a second. We have a hotly contested Supreme Court contest election. We have lots of outside money, and it appears in many of the right-leaning red counties, they were running out of ballots to the point where the GOP was telling people to stay in line. Thank you, Cyber Surfer, for the super chat. The Supreme Court has already ruled the judicial has no authority over the executive branch. Does this really stop the rogue judges altogether? Unfortunately, we see that the rogue judges will do what the rogue judges will do. As a matter of fact, we can see a little lint there. Matter of fact, we can see that the left in general doesn't like the Constitution and will do things regardless of what's above and beyond constitutional authority. That is how they roll. The Constitution. The Constitution, what's that? That's something written by a whole bunch of misogynistic, racist white men hundreds of years ago. It may be the backbone of our democracy. Yes, I know we are a republic, but our democracy. They only like the Constitution when it is convenient. And trust me, many of these people wish there was still slavery, but they can't have that. So, open borders. Thank you, Cyber Surfer, for your comment and for the super chat. Yeah, so let's look at this. Several counties in Wisconsin ran out of ballots during a highly contested state Supreme Court. 7 voting sites had 0 ballots due to unprecedented turnout. The GOP encouraged voters to stay in line. They had tweeted out last night, Wisconsin, and this is just hours before the polls are supposed to close. Wisconsin, if you're still in line, stay in line. You have the right to cast a ballot. If you run into problems, call the Protect the Vote hotline. They gave a hotline number and a website. Isn't that interesting? The persistent Scott Pressler tweeted out, yes, some Wisconsin polling locations did run out of ballots. More ballots are coming. I'm asking you to check on your local polling location, encouraging everyone to stay in line. Ballots are coming. Hold the line. So, Scott Pressler single-handedly and his organization and his efforts had led to the enrollment and the registering a lot of Republican voters in many states that President Trump won in 2024. So if you got Scott Pressler and you got the state GOP out there, this is a problem that was targeting, it seems like, initially, and once again, I'll have an update on this, so don't quote me on it, but it seems to have affected a lot of red areas. Nothing to see here. All our elections are free and fair. Colin Rugg also at Real Clear Politics also reported on this. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. But let's celebrate the big win that came out of Wisconsin, even though the Supreme Court, their state Supreme Court, is going to hold their leftist majority, and we're not going to have a chance to take this back until 2028. Interestingly enough, when we'll be voting for the next presidential election. And it's this. They were able to pass an amendment to their state constitution enforcing voter ID. So Wisconsin, interestingly enough, the people vote for voter ID, but they voted for a leftist Supreme Court. Oh, by the way, Wisconsin is very, very interesting because nationally, they tend to do really well with red voting and their representation to in DC on Capitol Hill, but their state tends to win. Democrats tend to do very well. So when it comes to local elections, Democrats seem to do very well, also upholding their leftist hold on, or the liberal hold, I should say, because not all of, there is a difference. In the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they're able to, what they do nationally doesn't match what they do internally in their state government. Isn't that interesting? But maybe Wisconsin will only have to suffer through this for the next several years because they're going to have voter ID. And this is the big win that President Trump is celebrating. President Trump celebrates passage of Wisconsin voter ID amendment as big win for Republicans. It's a big win for America and for Wisconsin voters. Breitbart reporting, voter ID just passed in Wisconsin election. Democrats fought hard against this, presumably so they can CHEAT, so they can cheat, the 45th and 47th president said in a post to Truth Social. This is a big win for Republicans, maybe the biggest win of the night. It should allow us to win Wisconsin like I just did in the presidential election for many years to come. So I'm hoping President Trump is correct. So now this went before the voters. The voters want voter ID and they want it on their state constitution. This is a big win. And folks, if we can lose, I say we, as if I were a Wisconsin voter. I do have family in Wisconsin, so I do have some sort of a vested interest in this. But also, we look at what's happening in different states because they are a reflection of the battle going on in our nation. And this is absolutely good. So the amendment was called Question 1, and this is the question. Photographic identification for voting. Shall Section 1M of Article 3 of the Constitution be created to require that voters present valid photographic identification verifying their identity in order to vote in any election, subject to exceptions which may be established by law? So there was a little bit of subject to exceptions in there. And the people overwhelmingly, 63 to 38%, 63 to 37%, voted for yes. The amendment overwhelmingly passed the Badger State. So that is a big win that President Trump is celebrating. A big hug to all of y'all. Appreciate you being here. Kamala Harris posted a late night cringe video celebrating the Democrats' Wisconsin Supreme Court victory. We don't care really about what she had to say, except that a lot of people are saying it looked like she was, let's just say, under the influence, having celebrating with a nightcap, and the so-called wine aficionado cheered Wisconsin Democrats who supported the victorious Susan Crawford win and took a swipe at Elon Musk, who, once again, it looks like was being reported that he poured in $20 million into the losing Republican candidate, Brad Schimmel. Is she ever sober? I sure hope that California doesn't vote for her to be their next governor. But I trust the results of California selection process as much as I trust Bill Clinton around as president around children, 14 and 15-year-old girls, and people whose first names are Monica and end with Lewinsky. Big hug to all of y'all. The first one who checked in was Palmetto Travelers on there. And then when I went, Palmetto, are you there? Are you here now? Are you here now, Palmetto? Palmetto checked in and then checked out, but was the first one to check into the live stream, but then bounced out. Dick Van Dyke was like, damn it, the Palmetto Travelers. I thought for sure I'd be first. Well, Dick Van Dyke, you're still here. I appreciate you being here. Dick Van Dyke went on to say that he has been watching, let's see, who was that, you? Dick Van Dyke? Yeah. Dick Van Dyke says he's been watching me for the last 8 years and watches most of my reports all the way through. And wow, that is incredible, because I do go longer and more in depth in some of these reports. And I tend to do about an hour or so worth of reporting on average on YouTube per day. Sometimes on the weekend, it may be like 45 minutes or, thereabouts. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. Live free or die. Thanks for all your hard work. Love you reporting, OGBCP. Been a sub since 2016 and never disappointed. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Much love to all of y'all. Let me get back over here. Welcome, BCP fan club member Patrick Hartman, who's out there. HD Warrior, I see you. Cyber Surfer. Laugh out loud. She always looks drunk. Yeah, just Heels Up Harris just has that frat girl look. That I don't know. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know. I went to UC Berkeley in the early 90s, and you could tell who the frat girls, what my kids now call pick-me's. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term, if you have children or grandchildren that use that term. But the first time I heard my son, junior number 2, use it, I laughed my ass off, because I could already understand what that Cyber Surfer went to UC Fullerton, so you probably know what I'm talking about as well. Yeah, Tracy Hernandez is laughing. Pick me's. I don't know. See, like you get it right away. You get it right away what it means, right? So when my son used it, I thought it was very funny. All right, let's get back to the news, folks. By the way, don't forget, I have another show. It's called the BCP Podcast. You can catch it at bcpextras.com or therealbcp.com. And I report on things that I can't touch on over there. As a matter of fact, my pre-recorded, check this out. Just want to do this just let you know before I get into the rest of the news. Yesterday, when I did my pre-recorded show, I was doing a little promo for the BCP podcast. I may go back to the old name. I think it might be appropriate now that I'm back active on YouTube. The original name of the show was BCP Unfiltered, because that's where I talk about things unfiltered that I can't really talk about on this platform. But then when I was no longer on YouTube, I just changed the show to the BCP podcast. But maybe I should switch it back. I don't know. You can guys tell me what you think. It doesn't really matter. The show's going to be the same. It just might be a different name, and maybe BCP Unfiltered might be more attractive to get people here on YouTube to go over and check the show out. But what I did a promo, and all I did was show, I showed on screen I said, hey, check out my latest episode. I talk about things that I can't really report here on YouTube. And all I did was show on screen my latest report. And what I showed on screen has to do with a certain man who may have had an island in the Caribbean, and a certain accuser of his and Prince Andrew, who allegedly was taken advantage of at the age of 17 by very high, powerful people. When I uploaded that report, I didn't even say any names. I didn't report. It was just showing you a screen of my thumbnail and title for my latest report, and YouTube would not process the video. It was stuck in process. It said, this video is taking longer to process than usual. All I did was in my promo said, oh, and check out my latest video, and just showed you the thumbnail and the title for that video, and YouTube wouldn't let it process. Wow. So I went back and re-edited just that thing, just showing like the logo for the show, and it was uploaded and processed, no issue. The other original version never even fully processed. So it seems like big tech is still in the bag for supporting and covering for some of the most disgusting criminals this world has ever seen. It is an absolute shame. I'm not a vulgar man, but I can tell you that when I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Because you get that feeling. I'm sitting there going, oh, wait a minute, why isn't this processing? And then, maybe it's the little whisperings of the Lord through the Holy Spirit, or maybe it's just, just that sixth sense that I have from doing this so long. I'm like, it's probably that literally 4 seconds of on screen of that one image that's probably causing the problem. And I remember saying to myself, I'm glad no one can listen to what I'm saying, because I went in on it may have been a strong word tirade. No one was here with me, but it was vocal and out loud. And I was like, I cannot believe we're 2025 and they are still covering for these vile PDF Adobe file loving people. It's really a scary thought that they are still being protected. I can't wait for the day when it's not safe for them to walk the streets. I hope that day is fast approaching us. And by the way, folks, I want to ask one last thing. I know I'm getting off of the news here for a second, but this is a live stream and it's a little bit different. And I will put up there will be timestamps for those who are watching the replay, which of course doesn't really help anyone here on the live. But if you can please, I'm going to ask you for a prayer for our family. We are fighting with the state of California. The parents of the 2 boys that we have emergency custody of, they've done everything that the state of California and the judge and the courts have asked them to do. Yet we're fighting with California. We're on the phone with lawyers, their lawyers, our lawyers, the kids' lawyers. It's just ridiculous. The state of California, they have met every single benchmark. These parents are good parents. These are not bad parents. They just got in a wacky situation. We have these kids. We want to go back to Utah. These children should be back with their parents. And the state of California is literally fighting the fact that the parents have met all of their benchmarks and should get their children back. So we've got another inspection in our home coming today. We've got more California up our ass and in our business. I mean, it's pretty intrusive, the state of California, and we're doing right by these children, and we want the state of California to do right by these children. So if you can please pray for these children, and that they can go back to their parents. Please pray, not for us and our family, but for these children. These children should be back with their parents, and we would like them to go back to their parents so we can go back to our home in Utah. So please, folks, if you're the praying type, if you're not the praying type, put good thoughts out into the universe if that makes you feel good. Because guess what? God created us. Whether you believe in Jesus Christ or not, he sent his only begotten son to die for our sins. And he does hear your prayers, even if you try to mask it as good thoughts into the universe. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Let me get back to the news. And thanks for indulging me in the last little bit. Now, let's go over to Florida, where the conservative principles and leadership got a resounding, huge win in the state of Florida. Republicans Randy Fine and Jimmy Patronis emerged victorious in Florida's special elections on Tuesday. We had these special elections because Mike Waltz vacated his 6th congressional district seat to serve as President Trump's national security advisor. Let's just see where Mike Waltz goes out. But, I'm starting to have my doubts about him. I don't like to do that because it just could be that the Democrats and the leftists are targeting him like they targeted Lieutenant General Michael Flynn in President Trump's first term, and I'm buying into it. But come on, man, don't be using Gmail to conduct government business. And I don't think he's being forthright with his relationship and his coziness, or maybe that may not be a coziness, but there seems to be evidence that Mike Waltz has some sort of relationship and knows and has spoken to and has communicated with Jeffrey Goldstein of The Atlantic. And I don't, my gut, and hopefully my gut is wrong, has told me that Mike Waltz is not being forthcoming on his relationship with Jeffrey Goldstein. So he's got 2 strikes in my book. But anyhow, Trump endorsed Randy Fine clinched the 6th congressional district seat, and he has succeeded Mike Waltz in that seat. And then, of course, we have over on the Panhandle, Mike Gates seat, and that's why we had this special election. And that one was won. I don't get this confused. Randy Fine got Waltz's seat, and Jimmy Patronis won the seat that was by Matt Gaetz. So that continues to have Republican and conservative representation in Florida. They held the line. Now, let's talk about what's going on on Capitol Hill. Some important stuff here happening on Capitol Hill is this. We have Jamie Raskin. How's a guy like Jamie Raskin even in? The guy is, okay, was it Andrew Breitbart who said that politics is downstream from popular culture? Maybe it wasn't him who said it, but I'm sitting here and going, sometimes, okay, I know that politics is not a beauty contest. I know it's not Hollywood. I know it's not like the Grammys. I know it's not popular culture. So, ugly people like myself, like, I watched this video the other day and I was laughing with my wife, and it was like one of these podcasts. It just came up on one of these reels or shorts or whatever. And I think it's called the Whatever Podcast, because I've seen it come up my feed a couple times. And they had these, like, it was funny. It was like these people roasting leftists, women who sell pictures of themselves online on one of these sites that's only for, fans of their content. And they had them rate themselves, like, rate yourself on 1 to 10. And some of them are ridiculous, extremely obese women with not very pretty faces, thinking that they're a 10 and what have you. So look, my criticism is coming from a guy. I look at myself and I rank myself a solid 5, right? I'm a solid 5, okay? I have no problem with that, okay? My wife, when I met her, when I was in college, she was a solid 7. I definitely voted, I married up, right? In the looks department. So this is not like I'm some pretty model denigrating someone else, but I look at some of these people and they're not attractive physically, which is okay, but they're not attractive in any way, shape, or form. They don't look like they carry themselves well. They have an air of lying and scumminess. You know how some people just have this, they just project what I would call like douchebaggery. I just made that word up right now, but I'm trying to use words that we can relate to, even if I'm making words up. And Jamie Raskin has that rascal look about him. Like, first of all, he says absolutely asinine things. He's a total crazy crackpot and a total leftist. How does a guy like Jamie Raskin, how do voting Democrats, even find this guy attractive as a candidate and as a representative? He's a nutcase, and I don't know. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? And then you look at people we have on the right. And once again, this is coming from a guy who's a solid 5, all right? I might even be a 4.9 because of my height deficiency. I was a 4.9 because I was getting really chunky, but I'm put myself at a 5 now because I've lost 30 pounds, 40 pounds actually, 38 plus. How does a guy like Jamie Raskin keep getting voted in? Especially when he is demanding the return of Venezuelan gangsters to the United States. How does that happen? How does someone who cares more about gangbangers of MS-13 and Trinidad than his own constituents who are getting robbed, killed, violated, pillaged by these people? Man, they don't only care. It's obvious they don't care about Americans' borders, but it's obvious they don't even care about Americans, period. Quote, I call on my colleagues to demand that the Trump administration comply with all judicial orders while appealing whichever ones they want to appeal, and to demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers. This is what he said in a hearing yesterday. Of course, he was referencing to the 2, now 3, I think, aircraft that took these Tenderagua types and MS-13s out to El Salvador for incarceration in El Salvador. This is incredible. I especially call on them today, he said yesterday, to denounce all violent threats, doxing, online vilification, and threats against our judges. Who is doing this on the left? The left is the one with violent threats and carrying out violence. Ask Elon Musk and a whole bunch of people that own Teslas and work at Tesla, own properties. Who is the one doxing judges? Ask Supreme Court justices that have been doxed and have people on the left out there in front of their homes. Who is the one online vilifying everyone? See, the left attacks people personally. Generally speaking, we don't do that, even though I just attacked Jamie Raskin, because I think he's a scumbag. But I think he's a scumbag, especially, primarily 99%, because of things like this that he says and does. And he also looks like a scumbag. Forgive me, Father, for being so harsh on this man. I just think he's demonic, and demonic vibrations and personas and auras are repulsive to me. I don't think we're supposed to be attracted to evil. So he calls out the right for what the left is actually doing, which of course we know is projection, and we know this is their MO. By the way, folks, if I have not declared my love and adoration for every single one of you, please receive that right now. We are kindred spirit fighting these evil spirits in DC and around DC and possessing many of these DC people like Jamie Raskin. Now, this is a Judiciary Committee of the United States, and we should act like it. Absolutely interesting. Jamie Raskin's doing that. Now, we've got some good news coming out of the Senate. This is going to be a battle, but we have Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, during the Senate Judiciary hearing. So what I reported on Representative Jamie Raskin, it was at the House Judiciary meeting yesterday, but on the Senate Judiciary meeting, we have Senate Judiciary Chair Chucky Schumer. Excuse me, Chucky Schumer. Sorry about that. That's Kentucky. I mean, that's New York. Sorry. Chuck Grassley. Let me rewind here a second. Reset. This is live, folks. This is live. This is the real me. This is the real me, the pelon. Can't have long hair. Y'all want to see a picture of me when I was 17, 18, 19, and I had long dreadlocks down on my shoulders? Y'all want to see that? Should I put that in one of my videos? Let me know in the let me know in the comment section. Once again, live free or die, and Cyber Surfer, thank you for the super chats. I'll make sure I didn't miss anyone else's super chats here. Thank you very much. Okay, so Chuck Grassley, what is he introducing? Oh man, this is something that we absolutely need, and it's going to be a battle, but the battle has begun. Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley introduced legislation to prevent courts from issuing nationwide injunctions. Dubbed the Judicial Relief Clarification Act of 2025, the law comes amid heightened scrutiny over the use of nationwide injunctions and their increasing role in halting aspects of President Donald Trump's agenda. The law would amend 2 other laws, the Administrative Procedure Act and the Declaratory Judgment Act, to limit the scope of relief courts are authorized to offer under statutes. Nationwide injunctions have been the subject of debate, including whether Article 3 of the Constitution even authorizes their use. That provision vests judicial power in the courts and generally gives them authority over cases and controversies. Now, here's the thing, and Chuck Grassley has already started his campaign. He has an op-ed piece, and he said this, and this is, once again, the Constitution. Article 3 of the Constitution tasks the judicial branch with resolving cases and controversies, not making policy. This is what we have going on with these treasonous, traitorous rat bastards effectuating this judicial coup. They are not judging and ruling on cases and controversies. They are making policy. They are trying to put themselves as unelected commanders in chiefs, presidents of the United States, and executives of the executive branch. Now let's get into these numbers so we can see how this is definitely the doing of the left, mostly. Both parties have taken issue with the practice, and Democrats in particular have been known to do judge shopping. Okay? According to a study by Harvard Law Review, the number of universal orders has increased in recent years. George W. Bush saw 6. He saw 6 universal injunctions. Okay? 6 times where a lone rogue judge has said, the whole nation, I'm going to put a stop. I'm going to issue an injunction on this issue everywhere in the United States. George W. Bush saw 6. Obama saw twice as many as that during his term. Now, let's put this in perspective, folks. Let's put this in perspective. How many terms did George W. Bush serve? 2. How many did Obama serve? He also served 2. How many has President Trump served so far? 1 and 3 months. February 20th, March 20th, 2.5 months, right? 2.5 months, let's say. 2.5 months. Remember that. He's halfway through the amount of time that both Bush and Obama have served. Now, keeping that in mind, let's look at this number. 64. In Trump's first term, 64 universal injunctions. 59 of those came from a judge appointed by a president of the opposing party. So obviously, these are partisan injunctions by partisan operative judges. Of course, President Trump has announced their use, and he has asked the Supreme Court to intervene. This is what he said in a post on Truth Social. Unlawful nationwide injunctions by radical left judges could very well lead to the destruction of our country. And I absolutely believe that to be true. Now, here's why I'm a little bit optimistic that this could change or could be fixed. This is why I'm a little bit optimistic. Because we have a couple of, we have Keegan over in the Supreme Court, a leftist judge, who is not for universal injunctions. So this goes to the Supreme Court. We may even have one leftist judge which may side with this if it gets challenged. And that gives me a little bit of hope. Gives me a little bit of hope. Let me give you the details here. In issuing a preliminary injunction on Trump's birthright citizenship order, this is the birthright citizenship order received this injunction, right? And this is the order that's in front of the Supreme Court. This is probably one of the first things that the Supreme Court is going to look at. It is unclear how the Supreme Court will rule or what kinds of challenges grassroots legislation may face in the courts. However, multiple justices have expressed criticism of nationwide injunctions. Justices Neil Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas have issued an opinion scrutinizing their practice. So we know that Clarence Thomas is on our side. He always is. And Trump's pick, Gorsuch, is on our side on this as well. But while speaking at Northwestern University Law School in 2022, Justice Elena Kagan said, quote, "It just can't be right that one district judge can stop a nationwide policy in its tracks and leave it stopped for the years that it takes to go through the normal process." Wow. Wow. We got Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who hasn't really been for it in the past, apparently. But again, she did back a nationwide injunction issued against Trump's travel ban. So say one thing, do another. So there we have it. So this is great news that that this has been introduced, and my call for action is that you call your senators, even if they're left leaning. I know it seems frustrating, but let them know that you want them to support Chuck Grassley's Judicial Relief Clarification Act of 2025. We need to act on this. As I reported in my last live stream, my urgent live stream last night, Mike Johnson has taken any voting on bills off of the table, which of course is very, very bad, because they're not going to be voting on the House on stopping these rogue judges. They're not going to be voting on the SAVE Act. And this is not going to happen this week in the Senate, but at least we've got some good news that something is moving forward. So please, folks, go over there to your senator's website, call them, email them, snail mail them, send homing pigeons, whatever it is. Let them know that you want them to support Chuck Grassley in this. We must stop these rogue judges for being able to do nationwide injunctions, these partisan hack activists, justices, and judges. We must stop this. We must stop it. And let me wind down with these last few stories. I've gone longer, folks, than I wanted to go, about 40 minutes, but I want to cover this. You guys are still here with me. I see that we have people here on this live stream. We're at 600. We were at 500 in the 500. So obviously you guys are invested in this with me. Also, once again, I don't know when my next live stream will be. It'll probably be definitely later in the afternoon. As I told you, I have to deal with. Please pray for these two boys, that we will be able to get California to allow these children to go back to their parents. They should be back with their parents. They want to be back with their parents. Their parents want them. So I'm going to have intrusive California all up in my home, all up in my anus today, late this morning. And I don't know how long that process is going to be. Then I got to jump on the phone calls with attorneys. So it's going to take up a good portion of my morning. So I probably will have the next live stream. It may be a pre-recorded upload later today. So I do want to cover these stories. We have DNC and the Schumer suing Trump over the order targeting illegal immigrant voting. They really are not even trying to hide what they want to do here. They say that Trump's order is unconstitutional. Trump's order targeting illegal immigrant voting. Absolutely crazy. Zachary Stieber at the Epic Times, man, this guy is one of my favorite writers. He is so Johnny on the ball, and his writing is so good, covering what's going on Capitol Hill. The Democratic National Committee and two top U.S. lawmakers sued President Donald Trump over a recent executive order that aims to enforce the law against illegal immigrant voting on election dates. This is his article from yesterday. Quote, the executive order seeks to impose radical changes on how Americans register to vote, cast a ballot, and participate in our democracy, all of which threatens to disenfranchise lawful voters and none of which is legal, says the lawsuit filed by Democrat Party attorney Mark Elias. This is the same Mark Elias who is part of Perkins Coie and is the one that wait. I think he's part of Perkins Coie. I could be wrong on that, but he's definitely the one that was part of that whole Steele dossier and suing everyone to oblivion over election integrity. He's suing over election integrity because it's not election integrity to require that people prove who they are to vote. So, if his name is behind it, and that if Chucky Schumer is the push behind it, that it is a leftist Democrat operative. So President Trump's March 25th order has multiple sections. Several deal with laws that bar foreigners from registering to vote or from voting in federal elections. Trump directed the Independent Election Assistance Commission to require proof of U.S. citizenship in its mail voter registration form ordered U.S. officials to work with the Department of Government Efficiency to review voter rolls to identify non-citizens who are already registered, and told the U.S. Attorney General to prosecute individuals who have illegally registered or voted. And Chucky Schumer and the DNC are voting against this because it disenfranchises legal voters. How is targeting non-citizen voting, which is illegal, disenfranchising lawful voters? Once again, it's just mealy-mouthed BS coming out of the crazy leftists who hate America and hate our ability as citizens to pick those who rule, and, well, they should be ruling over us, those who they want to rule over us. We have a representative republic. That is what the kind of government we have in the United States of America. So we can pick those who govern us, not rule us. They want to be able to pick who rule over us. That's what I meant to say, but I got a little tongue-tied there. All right. Are you guys in it for 2 more stories? Let me know. These are Trump stories. Let me know. You know what? This is fairly long. This is fairly long. So let me save these next 2 report. No, damn it. I want to get through it right now. Let's go 50 minutes. Let's go 50 minutes. This is important, and they're not going to take very long. Actually, this next story is going to be 90 seconds because it's a to be continued story. But President Trump will be revealing the long-awaited details of his tariff plan, Liberation Day today. It'll be an event in the over in the what's it called, the East Garden, and it's going to take place after the markets close today. So I will probably be covering that in a much later live stream. Once again, folks, I don't know what my coverage is going to be like today because I have this situation with the children. We are happily taking care of them, but I'm looking forward to going back to being an empty nester and heading back to Utah. So please pray for these boys once again. And so we're going to have Liberation Day today. Later today, we'll get the details of it. So let me just stop there because we'll know more about it. But motor vehicles, pharma and medicines, oil and gas, motor vehicle parts, and computer equipment are probably going to be the big industries that are going to be impacted by this. And the countries that are going to have the biggest impact are Canada, Mexico, Ireland, Germany, India, China, Vietnam, South Korea, and Japan. But check this out. Here's the number that I want to report to you so that you can forget all of the noise that you're hearing from the left. Consulting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers measured that the U.S. tariff revenues could increase from $76 billion annually to almost $700 billion annually. This is like an 8x or so increase. And because manufacturing is at the crux of a lot of this, and pharma, this would be great for America if we can bring back manufacturing, and very importantly, maybe even in some aspects more importantly, given what we saw in the pandemic a few years ago, we won't be beholden to our pharmaceutical goods coming from China that hates us and is trying to poison us and sending fentanyl via Mexican drug cartels to kill our people. And then the last story, I'm rushing through this. President Trump administration is going to freeze funding for Planned Parenthood because they may have violated their grant agreements. So putting the fire on them. Why are we funding Planned Parenthood just so they can spend money on Democrats to undermine our Republican form of government? The Department of Health and Human Services has halted Title X government funding for Planned Parenthood, the nation's top provider of elective termination of pregnancies. That title provides for funding for natural family planning methods, infertility services, and services for adolescents, highly effective contraceptive methods, breast and cervical cancer screening, and prevention. HHS said in a statement it is withholding funding from 16 organizations, 9 of which are affiliated with Planned Parenthood, while it evaluates their policies for possible violations of civil rights law and executive orders issued by President Donald Trump. And this is coming from an HHS secretary that is a Democrat. President Trump is a baller leader. This is great news. I want to make sure this is less than 50 minutes. I love every single one of you. Please, prayers for these 2 boys that they can go back to their parents, and the missus and I can California, who doesn't seem to want to cooperate with us, our family, and the attorneys involved in this process. Love to all of y'all. I will be back. Hit the like button and the notification bell.